Welcome back to our special Bulletin review, an enterprise cloud conversation sponsored by Oracle and Accenture here on Federal News Network. My guests today are David Knox, the Group Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for Public Sector at Oracle, and Chris Pasternak, the Managing Director and North America Oracle Lead at Accenture. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. And David, before the break, we were talking about skill sets and what is needed both on the government and the vendor side in the cloud age. And I wanted to get your perspective from a product vendor, especially one that has a legacy of applications and databases. And Oracle, for many, many years, sold that type of product to government people that became specialists, say, in Oracle and Oracle applications. Now, as a cloud provider, that's kind of like a new Oracle. And so what are some of the skill sets that you are finding that you're looking for in the government that it needs to develop so that you can best work with customers in the cloud age?
So, Tom, I think that the evolution is one that is twofold. One is obviously the technological aspect of what has happened with cloud, and it's not just an outsourcing IT. We call that managed services at a certain point, but it's the construct of having services. And then there's the business part of that. There's the subscription part of it. There's the pay as you go construct with that allows a new level of thinking, and it's a new level of responsibilities, to your point, and a new type of engagement between the public and private sector, the private sector being the cloud service providers. That role for private sector cloud service providers has expanded immensely. It wasn't too long ago when you're selling on-premise technology. First of all, the phrase on-premise wasn't even really, who would use that to describe anything on-premise? What was happening was the technology was sold, so that was the business part. It had generally an annual or multi-year kind of term to right to use that, but the implementation and the success shifted 100% to the implementers and to the buyer. In cloud, we see quite a change in that because of the fact that you can turn on and turn off services, because you can decide to renew or stop, and so the business part even tends to drive that technological part. That has changed the engagement that occurs between the cloud service providers and the private and the public sector buyers in there. And so what that means is it's a continuous engagement model. And what we're seeing is in continuous engagement, and the learning is that continuous engagement is both at a teaching perspective from the cloud service providers, as well as a sort of consultative advisory, sort of an unofficial consultative advisory role on here's how to best take advantage of what these offerings are.
So it almost becomes incumbent on the government practitioner to almost take on project or program management skills because you do have an ongoing relationship with that cloud vendor.
Absolutely. And it's incumbent upon them to seize the opportunity now, because the cloud providers are very willing, they're very staffed, and they're very educated at being able to provide infrastructure and architecture best practices all the way up through the data layer into the business processes, and work alongside the Accentures of the world to really get faster time to mission, more reliable time to mission, and more agility as that mission evolves over time.
And so in some way that translates upstream in the managerial ladder of an agency to where real program managers and agency executives should have different expectations about their ability to roll out new services and new programs.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that it's sort of a lesson learned that's often forgot is not to be too prescriptive about the who's and the hows when choosing a direction through IT. That leniency and keeping the top level objective, for example, the ability, service levels and service expectations are the right level, saying how those things should be done, that should not be prescribed, because then you're boxing yourself in.
All right. And Chris, I wanted to ask you about modernization in cloud. And as we know, the Biden administration, the new administration, has requested anyway, $9 billion for the Technology Modernization Fund. Nobody knows how that will go, but it's possible that the next round of TMF could be substantially larger than we've seen in the past several years by possibly a factor of 10 or 20. And so as agencies think about modernizing, they have to think about cloud. And so they come to the classic question of how do I prioritize what workloads are best suited to refactor or otherwise re-architect for the cloud, given that there's a generation of applications already in the cloud for most agencies. What's the next field here?
Yeah, and you know what, Tom, it really tends to depend on that organization, what the strategy, the goal, the focus of the organization is. You know, I spend a lot of time working with our clients thinking about big legacy on-prem application stacks. You know, it's over the past decade or so, we've seen web apps and things of that nature move to cloud. We've seen custom new development. We've not seen a lot of movement up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago of big legacy on-prem run your business type applications. Those have classically been in the data center. Part of it is, yeah, they haven't played well with cloud in the past, and part of it is just a fear of I've got this thing working, and the minute I relinquish control, I lose that opportunity to provide service to my users. So the key factor really being thinking about where are you now? Everybody's got something in cloud. Thinking about what makes the biggest improvement. So if I think about back office applications, because it's frankly, I started in ERPs and moved into cloud over the years and that sort of thing. But if I think about those ERPs, back office, really the goal for everybody should be looking down the line 10 years and say, but in 10 years, I'm on SaaS. I'm done running these applications. I'm done messing around with this stuff. I'm on SaaS. How do I get there? Then becomes that conversation. And, we know that federal financials, for example, is complicated. It's different than private sector, than GAAP accounting. So it's taking time to get there. But if I want to move to cloud now, use it as a stepping stone. What things can I do? I put that application on cloud. How do I then further my agenda by stop customizing the app, build using cloud native services bolted onto the application, because then I can just repoint. That makes things so much easier to start to think about your transition.
And David, that implies, of course, that there are new services coming from clouds. And, again, as a technology vendor, Oracle has a long history of adding new products and services to existing ones. I'm old enough to remember when dual phase commit was a big deal in database processing, and we're many decades from that. But what are some of the latest offerings technically from clouds that can enable agencies to think about factoring those enterprise applications that Chris just described? Because I think clouds ought to be a partner in that, and not just wait for the agency to upload it. Fair enough?
Fair enough, for sure. Thanks for the call out to two-phase commit there. That's
That's
brings
taken
a
us
lot.
back a while.
Let's spend 20 minutes on that if you don't. No, I'm just kidding. The services. It's interesting when you get the list of what's available, because it really quickly shoots up into the hundreds. And what you realize is there's a lot going on there that really provides a very robust cloud. And I'll even talk about things like Cloud Guard and Data Safe as an example from Oracle, where these are tools that look at your actual implementation in cloud and run risk and security assessments against this to make sure that you haven't accidentally left some doors and windows unlocked and open in there. Or if you've done it, you certainly are aware of what that is. So there's benefits in and above what used to be available for just pure services, if you will. And the government, this is huge for compliance and auditing requirements, being able to do attestation and feel that level of confidence, do it easily, do it for low cost, do it consistently, do it reliably. That's a small thing. That's a big thing inside of public sector. And then I think the part that really hits people that they get excited about are things like digital assistants, blockchain, the AI and ML abilities, doing graph analytics, taking advantage of huge farms of GPUs that can do types of computing that were difficult to do because it was an investment in a completely different type of computing resource. So now agencies have the ability to try out new concepts, new constructs that they've kicked around, and ideas that they can pull in from other industries and other sectors. Say, I wonder if I can apply that to my mission here and get similar results. In my mind, I can see how that works. The cloud has the capabilities. We just need to turn it on to try and take advantage of it.
And Chris, that thought strikes me that it's related a lot to the whole machine learning, artificial intelligence question, because I think given the data costs and data maintenance costs that agencies face, regardless of where the data is, by running the right algorithms totally in the cloud against the data that's in the cloud, you might have sort of a lightweight set of traffic going back, giving you, so to speak, the answer. Is that a good way to look at it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you look at those surprise, we talked about cost, you look at the surprise cost, network cost, storage costs, those types of things. You're right. Spot on. That's the stuff that surprises organizations. So if you can start to get smarter for how you leverage that and using things that are this new technology, AI, ML, starting to implement those types of technology to, number one, fine, use less network traffic, be able to get the answers, but continue to get better answers. And the beauty of it is, years ago, we were doing the mining ourselves. We were doing all the thinking ourselves. We had to go out and figure out what data to get and what have you. As machine learning and AI continues to get smarter, it's helping us do that so we can react faster, make better decisions, continue to improve those decisions. And that's where starting to take a look at that, if ever, I would frankly say if you're an organization that's not looking at it, you need to at least look at how does that improve your data. Everybody needs data. Everybody's got to use it. Frankly, there's one of the data guys that I work with a lot pointed out that there's information and there's data. Everybody's got information. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to use the data?
All right. It's almost like making the cloud your data refinery. And in the time we have left, David, let me ask you about the hybrid situation, because, well, specifically, what type of effect does all of this new cloud thinking have on the data center, which agencies will still have? They all say we're going to be hybrid. And I think even the vendors realize they'll be hybrid, but it's not the same old grandma's data center either that's resulting when you do go heavily with cloud, correct?
Absolutely. Hybrid is a reality for sure. Multi-clouds is a reality. The certain workloads work better on certain architectures and certain systems. As I mentioned before, if you're doing massive graphics, analytics, GPUs tend to work better on those kinds of systems. And so as people contemplate their crawl, walk, run strategy for cloud, they have to think very carefully, what goes to cloud, how does it go to cloud, and what does that mean for the things that are not in cloud? That's first step. And then that's the crawl. And then as they start to walk, they start to think about the multi-clouds. And then how do I do things consistently so that they can at least think mentally about what is their overall governance and strategy for cloud, irrespective of the thing, irrespective of where it goes, irrespective of when it goes. They're able to speak to it in a way that makes sense for them, and it gives them a path to move forward.
Some great ideas, some great thoughts. I want to thank today's guests because we are out of time. Chris Pasternak is the Managing Director and North America Oracle Lead at Accenture, and David Knox is the Group Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for Public Sector at Oracle. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. You've been listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Oracle.